you ever get a message from your client pop up and just get that feeling of dread? You have a feeling it's going to be another revision, even though they said it was the last one for the 5th time. You're dreading the feedback on the video that you sent them last night because they're never satisfied. You never get any praise for your work, never a thank you, just more things to change. It doesn't matter if they're paying you well or if they're barely paying you at all. If your client makes you feel like this video is for you. Just over a year ago, I quit my 9-to-5 job. This is working in a freezer all day, every day, with just a few thousand saved up and 0 editing experience. Now I make over 4K a month working with my dream client, and that's allowed me to move out to Southeast Asia and live my dream life. The clients that you work with will determine whether you hate video editing, burn out and go crawling back to your 9-to-5 job, or whether you love it, stay jobless and make more money than you've ever made in your entire life. I want to tell you guys about one of my old clients. He was my 2nd ever video editing client. It started off pretty well. He was in my preferred niche. He created vlogs. I wanted to edit vlogs. And I saw him post on Twitter, basically hiring a video editor in my preferred style. I applied with basically nothing on my portfolio. The only thing that I had was one vlog edit from a client that I hated working with and one practice vlog re-edit that I made. Long story short, I got shortlisted down to 3 editors. I did the trial edit, he liked it, and then he hired me. Here was the first mistake that I made. There was 0 negotiation on the price before any of this. I had no idea what I'd even get paid before I even did the trial edit. Only after he hired me, we got on a call and then we started talking about the price. Because it was my 2nd ever video editing client, I was excited because he was in my exact niche that I wanted to edit in, right? So naturally, I just kind of wanted to do the work. I wanted to do the work and then just have that good piece on my portfolio. But in my mind, I also thought that I got very lucky with finding this guy because it's the exact kind of work that I want to do. So therefore, I need to just work with him and make it work, like no matter what the price is. So on that call, I named my price. I said £250, which is about $330, right? He agreed with it and I was pretty satisfied. You know, that's not a bad price to have, especially for my 2nd video editing client. And I'm pretty sure my 2nd ever video. Here's what I want you to take from that. Never, ever, ever start any kind of work, including a trial edit, before you've negotiated a price. For all I knew, you know, I could have quoted £250 for this vlog, right? And the most he was willing to pay was £100. So therefore, I've done that trial edit for nothing and wasted my time. Looking back, you know, he probably knew what he was doing, right? He was a businessman himself, you know, he had like a real estate business and he probably just wanted to see how I'd respond, whether I'd push back on the fact that there was no price discussed. Since I didn't, he probably just saw that he could control me and micromanage me. And that's exactly what happened after we started working properly. The first video we did a round of revisions. It was, I can't remember exactly, but it was around 30 to 50 revisions. I made every single change, trying to see exactly what the reasons for the revisions were so I can make sure that this doesn't pop up again in the next video. I sent that back after I finished them and then he sends me back another round of revisions, which was probably like 20 to 30 of them. Stuff he could have flagged the first time, but I gave him the benefit of the doubt because it was only the 2nd round of revisions. He might have missed it in the first. And then I thought, okay, let me just do these ones and then that should be it, right? Then I sent that back and then there was a 3rd round. And then there was a 4th round, and then I'm pretty sure there was even a 5th and 6th round as well. Basically, the stuff that he was writing down was stuff that could have easily been put in the first 2 rounds of revision, right? But because I was sending them back and he was rewatching them, he would constantly just find new things to change, which wasn't necessary at all. But at the end of the day, I still did them. And I just kind of put it down to the fact that it was the first video we done together. You know, there's obviously going to be revisions there and I can just take this as a learning lesson for the next video to make sure that these kind of revisions don't happen again. 2nd video came, exact same thing happened, right? 1st round, 2nd round, 3rd round, 4th round, same shit. Basically, I applied pretty much every revision that he wrote in the 1st video into the 2nd video so that these wouldn't happen again, right? But same thing happened, just every time he'd rewatch it, every time he'd give a new round of revisions, he would just find all these tiny little specific details to change, right? That did not matter whatsoever. It's not gonna change view duration, it's not gonna change retention, it's not gonna lose him any money. I worked with him for about 6 to 7 months, so quite a long time, right? But the thing is, he was inconsistent, so we only did like 5 or 6 videos together. Now, the issue was, and it's completely my fault, is that I never set any boundaries. I never told him there was a limit on the amount of revisions he could make, and I never pushed back on it either. This is absolutely something you should do with every single client that you work with. Set a limit of 2 or 3 rounds of revisions max. If you have a limit in place, this will force them to sit down and actually take time and get all the necessary revisions down so that when he sends it back to you and you implement them, the video is 99 to 100% done. Now, the second round of revisions is basically for anything he might have missed in the first round. Because it's normal, it's natural, you know, we're human. But with that second round of revisions, you can't expect there to be another 30 or 40 revisions, right? And then what you could do after that is, you know, if they forgot anything in the second round of revisions, then you can set a clause in place where any extra rounds of revisions after that will cost them extra. That's lesson number 1. Another thing with the client, right, is that he never ever praised my work. I know for a fact there was a ton of times where he liked what I made. And usually when this was the case, he would say nothing. He would never say thank you. He'd never say, oh, great job, thanks for the edit, anything like this, right? But he would always find everything that was wrong with the video. Every little thing that I might have missed or any little mistake that I made. Now, of course, you know, the mistakes and the stuff that I might have not implemented, that was also on me. You know, I take blame for that as well because I was still new to video editing. I wasn't a good editor. I was okay and I learned a thing or two, but I was still learning. But the biggest issue was that he saw me as his employee. Like, he was my boss, right? He never saw me as a creative partner. He never saw me as someone who he's working with to make this a really good video. It would always just be a case of he saw me as just a disposable robot. It was, oh, here's my brief, do exactly like this and nothing else. He never valued my input, my opinions, even when I presented it. Over time, this built a lot of like resentment. You know, I resented working with him. It wasn't hate, because it was never personal, obviously. But I dreaded every message that I got from him. And every time I'd finish one of his videos, I'd feel relief instead of pride. Always be thinking, oh, like, thank God that video is done. Instead of thinking, oh, like, I did a really good job on that. Oh, I really enjoyed making that. And then obviously after that, after I sent it to him, I knew there'd be a big list of revisions after it as well, without fail. Naturally, because of this resentment, the quality of my work would also deteriorate as well. I'd never be able to produce my best work because of this. Not because I hated editing or not because I was a bad editor, but because I hated working with him. And then that becomes a cycle. So the worse you feel about a client, the worse your work gets, which just gives them more to pick apart. I held on to this client for like way too long. I worked with him for about 6 or 7 months and I only did about 5 or 6 videos with him in that time because he was inconsistent and he'd only send me videos when he decided he wanted to record. And also because I only had one other client who was even worse than this guy. You know, he treated me even worse and he was low paying as well. So naturally I just felt stuck. The reason why I'm telling you this story is because the clients that you work with will determine whether you love or hate video editing. And so many people quit because of the clients they work with. They naturally hate video editing and then they burn out because they're overworked, treated terribly, and underpaid. Think about a bad boss that you've had in maybe your current job or a previous job that you've had. They're always on your case, they're constantly micromanaging, they're always seeing the wrong in what you're doing and never, ever, ever praise your work. Obviously, you hate them, you hate your job. So then naturally the work that you do gets worse. So therefore it creates more resentment and more things that he has to say. It's the exact same dynamic with a client. It doesn't matter how much they pay you. You know, you might think, oh, well, if they're treating me badly and they're also paying me badly, then, well, yeah, this is shit. But it goes both ways, you know, if they're paying you well, it does not make it any different. You have to think about yourself just as much as you have to think about your client's needs when you're doing your work. You know, does this client fit your needs? Do they make you happy? Are you happy with the amount of hours you're working? Are you happy with how much they're paying you? You have to think about these things. Are you able to live a life outside of video editing, or are you working 14 to 15 hours a day? If the answer is no to any of that, then you should not be working with that client. Just think about why you got into video editing. Because you wanted to be self-employed, right? Because you wanted financial and location freedom, right? So then why are you working with these clients that make you feel like absolute shit? They look down on you. They make you feel like the smallest thing in the world. They underpay you so you can't even do anything. You're working 10 to 15 hours per day. So also you can't do anything. Even if you made good money, you're still working stupid amount of hours and you're extremely tired. You're basically in the rat race. You think you escaped it because you're self-employed, but you're still in the rat race, as if you were in just your normal 9-to-5 job. This isn't how self-employment should be, guys. You should be happy with what you do. Yeah, sure, it gets stressful. Yeah, sure, you have the days where you do have to work quite long hours, okay? This is self-employment, right? But you should never, ever, ever hate what you do. Most people believe that, oh, a job is a job. Guys, this isn't just a job. Yeah, sure, you're doing work for a paycheck. Sure, it's technically classed as a job, okay? But if you wanted a job, if you wanted a nice secure job, you should just go back to your 9-to-5 job. The client that I work with now, you know, the one I'm making 4K a month with, my dream client who's allowed me to move out to Southeast Asia and live my dream life. You know, I'm the happiest I've been probably in my life, or at least since I was a kid, before I could really probably remember. He is the complete opposite of this client that I told you about before. He pays me well. He treats me well. I have a pretty good personal relationship with him. I never really have to work more than 4 hours per day, usually 1 to 4 hours per day. He praises my work, he values my input, and I'm making the most amount of money I've ever made in my life, even more than I made in any of my jobs before. You know, I'm just happy. So therefore that reflects in my work. So what should you do differently? You need to set revision boundaries, you know, 2 to 3 max. And every revision needs to come with a good reason behind it. So that doesn't allow him to just throw in 200 comments, 200 revisions and just say, oh yeah, here's my round of revisions. You both need to be crystal fucking clear on what the deliverables are before even starting anything. So then they don't just like throw on a bunch of new revisions and a bunch of new things that wasn't previously discussed beforehand, costing you your time and money. Because these little changes or little additions in his mind is very quick, right? You know, oh, just put this in, you know, you're a video editor, just chuck it in. But to you, that's hours and hours added on to your time. And bearing in mind, if you're getting paid per video, this is absolutely destroying your hourly rate. You need to pay attention to how they communicate. You know, do they praise your work when you do a good job? Do they ever say thank you? Do they value your input? Or do they just shut it down whenever you offer it? If they don't give a fuck about your opinion, that's a huge red flag. Basically, if they just communicate poorly, if they send you unlimited revisions, never say thank you, blah, 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 you should avoid these clients. Yes, set boundaries, okay? Be clear on deliverables. Make sure that these things are put into place with every single client that you work with. But long term, if you want to work with a client that you genuinely enjoy working with, you have to be willing to walk away from these clients who show these red flags early on, because they're not going to change, okay? It's like a woman, right? If you date a woman who has gone to the club her whole life and she's slept around, right? She's got a body count in the triple digits, right? But in your mind, you might be thinking, oh, I can save her, you know, I'll change her. Brother, it's not going to happen. And it's the same thing with a client. If they show all these red flags, you're not changing them. They're just going to constantly piss you off. Guys, you have to be selfish here, okay? You have to think about yourself a little bit, right? Think about why you got into self-employment in the first place. Time, location, financial freedom. You wanted to be your own boss so that no one else could boss you around. You wanted to be happy with what you do. You wanted to enjoy what you do. You're not going to achieve that working with these clients that you hate. I hope this helps some of you guys who are in a similar position to what I used to be in. I was miserable, I was underpaid, I was still living at home with my parent. I'd never set any boundaries, I had no backbone, so I would get controlled by pretty much every client I worked with. Use this video to help you filter these bad clients out. Yeah, sure, you know, starting out, you're gonna have to work with some bad clients. You're gonna have to do a bit of the trench work, right? Because at the end of the day, you know, if you've got nothing on your portfolio, nothing to back your work up or anything like that, you have to get some kind of experience, right? And at the same time, I think that if I hadn't gone through these bad experiences with these bad clients, then I absolutely wouldn't be where I am today, especially as quick as I did it. But guys, as soon as you get to the point where you're making enough money to keep a roof over your head, then you need to start being ruthless with these clients who pop into your inbox, okay? Guys, you don't realize the literal hundreds of clients who popped into my inbox wanting to work with me. But because I was so vigorous with the amount I would filter these bad clients out, I was able to sense from a mile away that these clients that were popping into my inbox was not going to suit me. But the great thing with being absolutely vigorous on the amount I would filter out these clients is that this would open up so much room for then the right client to come. Okay, because if I'm working with bad clients constantly and, you know, saying yes to every single client that pops into my inbox, then how am I going to know or have the time to then find a good client, right? Because you're not going to know if the client is good by the message that they send to you in the inbox. You have to actually talk to them. You have to even work with them. And if I'm piled up in work because I said yes to everyone, then I'm not going to have time to even find out whether this client is a good client or not. So guys, please, please, please start filtering these bad clients out based off this video. Now that you know what kind of clients to avoid, if you want to see exactly how I got to 4K a month working with my dream client in just 1 year, then watch this video.